For thousands of years, this religion was a forgotten piece of history.
Most historians believed it was a small cult that fizzled out in Iran. Only recently have we realized this was one of the major world religions, stretching from Spain to China. But the reason this religion was so easily overlooked is the same reason it was so successful.
Wherever they went, they copied the language and style of the local people, making it very hard to detect them.
Still, the fingerprints of this forgotten faith are all over our modern world today.
So what was Manichaeanism? Hi, I'm Josh, and in this series I want to look at some less well-known patterns of belief in history and fantasy.
So for everything from heresy to hexes, let's get started. In 1902, a group of German archaeologists headed to the Taklamakan Desert in western China to look for remnants of a civilization which had existed over 1,000 years ago. The Uyghur kingdom at Kocho had flourished in 800 and 900 AD, mostly because it was a key point on the Silk Road, controlling trade from China to Persia and Europe. Moving nomadically between oases, the Uyghur kings spent their money on beautiful paintings, wall hangings, and temples carved like caves into the desert rocks.
However, the archaeologists were in for a surprise. Expecting to find a combination of Chinese and Mongol art, instead, they discovered something completely original.
The figure of Jesus Christ, but depicted as Buddha, the 4 Hindu gods seated in a painting that looked like it came from Persia, and all of this explained by a form of writing unlike anything seen before, except something like it had been found in Syria 500 years before the Kocho kingdom, inscribed on magical incantation bowls. It sounds like a random collection of bits and pieces, a chaotic mixing bowl of East and West.
But as they began to read and translate, they realized that all of these things were signs, evidence that a great religion had once flourished in Kocho. The religion of light, of the prophet Mani, Manichaeanism.
The archaeologists returned to Germany with 40,000 fragments and an idea that would change our understanding of history. Before these discoveries, no one had been particularly interested in Manichaeanism. It was a footnote in history, occasionally mentioned as a kind of Persian heresy, a wacky religious cult which spread in the late Roman Empire before Christianity snuffed it out. Its most famous follower was Saint Augustine, who flirted with the movement as a young man in the 370s. Once he became a Christian bishop, Augustine wrote about his time with the Manichaeans. Although he agreed they were wrong, Augustine presented the Manichaeans as sincere and idealistic. His problem was how their beliefs clashed with the modern science of his day. Manichaeans connected the lights in the sky to their gods. The moon, for example, they assigned to Jesus.
What confused the young Augustine was the fact that Roman astrologers had developed mathematical formulas to calculate the movement of the sun, moon, and stars. If everything could be reduced to maths and predictable formulas, how could the stars and sun be freely acting spirits?
Augustine moved away from Manichaeanism and became a famous Catholic. But for the archaeologists at Kocho in eastern China, he left a very big question. How had the faith Augustine encountered in North Africa in the 300s stretched across the deserts of Central Asia into Western China, where it was flourishing 500 years later? In that extraordinary gap in time and place lay a forgotten history, the story of a great world religion, the only one, in modern times, to go extinct. Because Manichaeans were so often persecuted, finding evidence of their beliefs was very difficult. In 1969, a university researcher found a little lump of animal skin and papyrus for sale in an Egyptian antique shop. It was 4.5 by 3.8 centimeters, the smallest ancient book to be discovered.
A painstaking analysis revealed it contained quotes from other Manichaean books, like a micro pocket Bible written around the time of Saint Augustine.
In this tiny book, we have the earliest information about the life of the prophet Mani, less than 2 centuries after his death.
Mani grew up in Babylon in a very strict religious sect, who mixed Christian and Jewish ideas and followed a demanding law of ritual purity. From a young age, Mani experienced voices and visions. He heard trees calling out to him, begging people not to pick their fruit. These signs communicated something to him. They showed him that his community was failing to purify the world, since the problem of matter, the mixture of good and evil in every single thing in the world, continued to exist.
What was the point of cleaning a carrot if after eating it, it left your body in an unclean and foul-smelling state? The fundamental problem of the universe, the mixture of purity and impurity, good and evil, light and dark, remained the same. When he became a man, a heavenly twin, a light-filled mirror image of himself, began to reveal more mysteries to him. This secret information about the world, which Mani's Greek followers called gnosis, was the only path to breaking free from the prison everyone was trapped in.
Now in Mani, the helper promised by Jesus in the Gospels, that message had been fully revealed. While I was considering these things, there appeared to me the entire world, which had become like a sea full of black water. And I saw thousands and tens of thousands brought down into it, plunged down into it, bobbing up and spinning about the four corners of the sea. And I saw, in the midst of it, a very high and strong bridge, and over it, alone, a light rising.
But Mani insisted this bridge over the waters was not a new path. He was simply completing the work done by Jesus, by Zoroaster, by the Buddha, who had all revealed this way in their own time and culture.
Like no other prophet or religious leader before him, Mani wanted to join Eastern and Western religious traditions into one single, harmonious whole.
But Mani's gnosis, his secret knowledge, was not just a copy and paste job. He had his own mysterious stories to tell.
Mani had his own strange story of the creation of the world. In fact, there were 3 creations,
each the result of a terrible battle between light and darkness. In the beginning, the Father of greatness, the one true God, ruled the kingdom of light with spirits that came from him. The king of darkness noticed the world of light and decided to break through and attack it. To deal with this, the Father of greatness made Original Man, a kind of superhero, who fought the demons but was partly defeated by them. Demons in Manichaeanism are greedy, hungry things who can never be filled, like the monster in Spirited Away. The demons ate as much light as possible before they were killed, but now there was a new problem.
The demons which had eaten so much light had been killed, and their bodies had been used to create the new world. But before that happened, they had had a lot of baby demons, all of them a mixture of light and darkness. And these baby demons kept traveling around the world, eating even more light and having even more babies. Eventually, one couple, a pair of demons, fell to the earth, and their children were Adam and Eve.
In their bodies, light and darkness were mixed together. To separate them, little by little, light could be sucked out of this world until the perfect separation had been achieved.
Perhaps what was so exciting about Mani's message was its positivity. Yes, all of us were a mixture of darkness and light, the products of greedy, hungry demons, but at the same time, everyone had particles of light in them, signs that connected them to the Father of greatness. Mani was much more interested in the light than the darkness.
Freeing light from the world was not an easy task. Only the elect, special Manichaeans who followed a very, very demanding set of rules, were able to liberate light from things. The elect could not pick fruit, could not cook, and even walking across the earth was a potential sin. The ordinary Manichaeans and the elect would come together each year at the most exciting event in the Manichaean calendar, the spring festival at the end of winter. The prophet Mani was imprisoned by the Iranian emperor Bahram in 277. He later died in prison. To remember his death and the promise of a new creation, in the world of light, the Manichaeans celebrated the festival of the bema. To an outsider, this seems very strange. A bema is a seat a judge sits on before condemning a criminal. It doesn't seem like something to celebrate, but the Manichaeans loved it. May the bema become a place of rest, a place for cleaning your life, a treasure chest filled with teaching, a ladder to the highest heavens. See all these things in the bema and bless it. Manichaeans saw hope in the judgment seat, a hope for an end to suffering and a final separation between light and darkness. All the trees have become new again. Look, roses have spread their beauty across the world, because the thing that harms their leaves has been cut away forever. The air is filled with light, the earth filled with blossom, and the waves of the sea are still and clear. This dream of a new world went far beyond humanity. Like the Apostle Paul, Mani taught that the whole of creation was groaning in pain for the judgment of God. Manichaeans felt a very close attachment to the natural world.
Many Manichaean hymns sung of the suffering of the world soul, trapped, like people, in a prison of light and darkness.
He had ploughs in storage and went to use them, but the earth spoke to him, saying, "Why do you make your living from me?" So he wept, kissed the earth, and placed it upon his breast, and began to say, "This is the flesh and blood of my Lord." With this universal vision about the nature of reality, Manichaean missionaries exploded across Europe and Asia.
With this universal vision, Manichaean missionaries exploded across Europe and Asia. Many of them were like Faustus, sincere and idealistic people. They were also often deceptively clever. One of the characters in my fantasy novel set in the Roman Empire is a Manichaean for this reason.
Copying Mani, who translated his teachings into different cultures, the missionaries changed out the names of gods and spirits for local deities. In the West, they spoke of Jesus the Splendor. In the East, the Jesus Buddha, or Jesus of the essence of harmony. In Syria, God was the father of greatness. In Babylon, he was the Zoroastrian deity, Zerwan. In China, he was the unsurpassed divinity of light. Compromise on the surface was the Manichaean way. After all, they had no army or government to support them. Secretly, carefully, with tiny books and words that people understood, the Manichaeans slipped into societies from Rome to China, following the pattern of Mani's own life. He was like a lamb in a strange flock, or like a bird living with other birds of a different song. Because of his wisdom and skill, none of them recognized who he was. No, they just saw him as one of them. Despite this habit of adapting to different cultures, the Manichaeans did have some things which made them stand out. The first was a big emphasis on art and creativity. The prophet Mani was a skilled painter alongside writing and teaching. This respect for art trickled down into Mani's followers, and Manichaean communities created beautiful banners, books, and wall hangings to celebrate their beliefs. Painting was one way people could connect to the divine light. The second clue that marked out the Manichaeans was their writing. They had their own alphabet, adopted from Syrian Aramaic. They would translate their holy books into all kinds of languages, but often using this Manichaean alphabet. With the rise of Christianity, the Manichaeans were pushed back to the fringes of the Roman Empire by waves of persecution, holding on longest in southern Egypt and parts of Turkey. In Iran, the Zoroastrians began to feel threatened, making the followers of Mani unwelcome there as well. Some believers moved northeast, along the Silk Road and into China. On the edge of the Tang Empire, at the Turfan Oasis, the Manichaean faith finally found a political refuge. The Uyghurs of Kocho converted together in 840 AD, and the faith of the persecuted minority suddenly found itself in a position of surprising power.
There was an explosion of Manichaean art and creativity. In the Bezeklik caves, beautiful murals covered the walls, showing stories from the Manichaean canon and messages about theology. For over 200 years, in the Kocho kingdom, Manichaeanism experienced a golden age. But perhaps the Manichaeans were not quite ready to take control of a country. Mani had taught how to survive as a small minority, not how to hold on to the seat of power. The elect became rich and fat. They owned large estates, wore the best clothes, had large groups of servants and slaves, and ate the best food. Far from being a suffering group of spiritual leaders, they seem more like Catholic clergy before the French Revolution.
Central Asia is not a good place to found a stable religious government anyway. Nomads and warring empires ate away at the cultural Uyghur kingdom. Buddhism became more popular than Manichaeanism amongst ordinary people. Then both were attacked by rages from the Karakhanid Khanate. By 1000 AD, many Manichaeans were moving away, this time to Fujian province in southern China. Here, in Buddhist disguise, the Manichaeans held on to their memories of what had been. For another 500 years they built temples, statues, and carved their teachings on stone. Now Mani, the ever-changing prophet, became a companion of Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, and an influence on Confucian teaching. These followers of the religion of light, of the path of Mani, were so good at fitting in, Chinese emperors sometimes persecuted Manichaeans and Buddhists together. The amazing role the Chinese Manichaeans played is shown by just one of their artworks, a silk scroll with a picture of the Buddha Jesus. Painted in the 1200s, for 3 centuries this picture hung on the walls of a Manichaean temple in Fujian. Then it was passed on to a Christian daimyo in Japan who used it in his church. After he was killed, Japanese Buddhists rescued the piece and have hung it in their temple in Koshu ever since.
By 1600, the last remaining Manichaean communities in the world had begun to dissolve into their surroundings.
The last remaining Manichaean temple was built to celebrate the Buddha of light. To this day, locals worship Mani as Buddha at this temple, and so in a small way, the legacy of this mighty world religion lives on. In Europe, on the other hand, long after real Manichaeans had disappeared, the word became an insult, an accusation of heresy used by the Catholic Church to condemn groups they didn't agree with. A Manichaean was someone who believed in a world with good and evil equally opposed.
Perhaps an unfair characterization. Remember, Mani taught that the world we live in is a mixture of black and white in everyone.
So why didn't Manichaeanism survive as a major world religion? Some of the stories seem a bit weird, but the core teaching is simple enough. Millions of people throughout history have found hope in the idea that this universe is a complicated rescue mission by the God of Light. Perhaps Mani's teachings were too idealistic. To become a member of the elect was a life-consuming goal with far more rules than even the strictest forms of Judaism. To balance that alongside preaching, meeting kings, or helping the community must have been very difficult. But we know the Manichaeans managed to do this. Their missionaries exploded across Europe and Asia with a passion.
Maybe a bigger problem was that Manichaeanism actually had very little to offer kings and emperors. Unlike Christianity, where you have the image of David or Solomon, which a king or an emperor can draw upon, the kingdom of light in Manichaeanism is a lot more abstract. It's removed from this world. We don't expect an emperor or a king in this world to create the kingdom of light. We just need to get the light out of here as fast as possible.
Of course, this could all be wrong. Is Manichaeanism dead or just on pause? It's no longer a forgotten religion. Copies of holy texts and hymns are being found all the time. And maybe some of Mani's thoughts are still useful.
As we mine and pollute our world more than ever before, perhaps believing in a world soul that cries out in agony isn't such a bad idea after all. For in Manichaeanism, the spiritual and the physical are closely connected.
Thanks for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. What religion would you like to see next? Leave a comment and let me know.